Hello, hello, everyone. Just waiting for everyone to tune in before we get started here. While we're waiting, we do have the chat activated, so go ahead and let everyone know where you're tuning in from. So I'm tuning in from Denver, Colorado. I almost said Denver, South Carolina, because I'm usually in South Carolina. So let me know who you are. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Would be really nice to see some familiar faces today. We'll give everyone about a minute to get started. So we've got Adam from Muskegon. Hello, Adam. We've got Joe from just outside Philly, Brandy from St. Louis, Missouri, and we've got Hagerstown, Maryland. I am getting so much better at my American states, by the way. We've got some more Hagerstown. We've got Carly tuning in from Tucson, Arizona, and Savannah and Christy from Scottsboro, Alabama. Well, it's fabulous to have a lot of you here today. So today we're going to be speaking about how to get your retail teams to buy into e-commerce. We've got Tori tuning in from St. Louis, Missouri. Hey, we've got matching names. You've got a T and I've got an L. That's fabulous. Great. So we're going to get started today. So the first 20 minutes of the presentation is going to be me sharing just some information with you on the Neatoscan and Upright Labs side, just some things that we've seen successful with regards to manifesting and tagging and driving more products to e-commerce. The second half, we're going to have 10 minutes at the end as well, where Adam's going to join us for Q&A. So I will let you know your best chance at having a question answered is by going to that Q&A just below there and asking questions as they pop up throughout the presentation. If you do submit them from the chat, we'll just have to scroll through to see them. So if you could help us out and pop it in the Q&A, that'd be really great. But share any thoughts, share where you're tuning in from in the chat as we move through. Great. So for those of you who don't already know me, my name's Laurie. So I'm the VP of Customer Experience here at Upright and Neatoscan. So I look after both the software teams and the services team here. And I've been in customer and people ops for over 8 years now. And I really like to help remove friction in people's lives so they can do what lights them up. Also, personally, I own my own e-commerce site and also sell a book on both Shopify and Amazon FBA. I've got Adam Krucht with me today. So he is a customer success specialist. He's been with Upright for over a year now, and he's the reason why Upright Labs now has these groovy videos. So if you see them, he's definitely the brains behind that. And he was also previously an e-commerce manager for a Goodwill. So he has a wealth of experience in this space and also runs his own e-commerce site. So please do, if you have any questions, let us know, because Adam's also a really great wealth of information there. So what are we going to be speaking about today? We're going to share some operational flows that have either increased the quality or the quantity of items coming through to the e-commerce facility. We're also going to showcase some features within the software that can help you improve the feedback loop to your store teams. And we're also going to help you leverage the data that you have to drive decisions and behavior. Firstly, a disclaimer, this presentation is very heavily geared towards helping you utilize some of our manifesting or tagging features, depending on which software you're on. However, if you're not using these features yet, no worries. We do highly recommend that you do, but we'll also be sharing some organizational or personal qualities needed to influence behavior of getting more items to e-commerce. So one of the most important components of driving more items to e-commerce is communication to help with buy-in. So we've helped clients implement some communication programs, and there are some specific strategies that I'll share with you shortly. But first, I do just want to share an example with you of how communication can help elevate product volume. Now, we can't determine a causal relationship between implementing these product programs and also increase in product volume. And the reason is because, as you know, at e-commerce, there's so many different factors when it comes to increasing volume and many other things at play. However, as you can see, those arrows are when we implemented, campaigns to stores, and you can see that increase in product volume. So there definitely is a relationship there. So we're going to be focusing on two different problems. First is not getting the right products. So you might be getting a whole bunch of products, but you're just not getting the right ones. And the second problem we're going to be focusing on a little bit later is not getting enough products. So your stores just aren't participating. So first, not getting the right products. Some e-commerce facilities, as I mentioned, will be getting loads, but they're just not the right ones. And the issue with this is that you're going to have increased time sorting or processing at e-commerce. And it's a little bit of waste of gas and truck space from the store to e-commerce. And it also increases the time to get those really high value products listed online. So increasing your product acceptance rate is really, really crucial for you. And there's a few ways that we're going to explain how to do this. First is newsletters to direct email or displayed in places where store employees can see it, streamlined reporting processes, and the full utilization of software features for Neatoscan or Upright, whichever software you're using. So firstly, let's chat newsletters. So the newsletter that you see on the screen here is similar to the store email campaigns our clients launched that saw that increase in products sent to e-commerce. So those two charts that I was sharing with you a little bit earlier, this is really similar to the sort of stuff we helped clients out with. So if you're looking to increase item quality or acceptance rate, this is what should be included in your email. Firstly, the top selling categories, the average price per item, and a top selling item linking to this item so that people can visually see it as well. The audience of this newsletter should be anyone manifesting or tagging at the store level, whether it's the store staff members or the store managers. If you have folks who are manifesting or tagging that do not have access to email, then we recommend displaying this data on a community board or a TV screen or something else, because I know a lot of the stores have just the one email rather than individual emails. So that's another strategy we've seen has been successful. Something else that we've observed that works really well are visual slideshows or guides of the products that are hot sellers online. So as you'll see, we've got the bucket or the suitcase of Neato fish there and the upright unicorns. If any of you have been to the conferences and said hello to us, you may have seen these before. So many retail stores do have high turnover and visual or kinesthetic learners, and this really helps with that. If you do have this problem, we recommend keeping the image of high selling items with the average price per item or top item selling price. In the example on the screen, we provided, a top selling item price there. This is also really great with logo recognition training. So as you may hear, I'm not from around here. I have an Australian accent. And this is just a really simple example. I never knew really what the North Face or Patagonia brands were. It's just not something I'm familiar with, because in Australia, what I personally, my go-to brand was Kathmandu, which is probably a brand that you've never heard of. And that's just one person's experience. So with your diverse workforce, it's really great to diversify the way that you're communicating the types of items and brands that you'd like to be sent through, especially in a visual way. Next up is reporting. So this is actually an example of an API report. So both Upright Labs and Neatoscan have an API endpoint that you can utilize to create supplier reports, which is a really fast way to get data. So on the screen, you're going to see a supplier report here that the Upright Labs services team uses through our data warehouse for monthly growth support clients. So if you have somebody on your team who can manipulate data, don't worry if you don't, we'll get to that shortly. We recommend using the API to generate reports like this. The sorts of things you'll want to be focusing on are segmenting categories, item revenue within these categories. So as you can see, there's a higher price point there, and then category average price per item. So I've sorted these reports. By the way, this isn't real data, so please don't go away and do all sports and fitness. This isn't real data, so it won't be an accurate representation of what to sell. But I've gone ahead and sorted this by category average price per item from highest to lowest, because if you're going to combine a report like this with the newsletter template that I shared earlier, then it makes for a really quick and streamlined e-commerce store-to-store communication process. And again, don't worry if you don't have the resources to create reports like this, you don't have a data warehouse like Power BI or people with API knowledge. There are plenty of in-app reporting and features in both Upright Labs and Neatoscan. Great. So we're going to take a look at Upright's features, and we're going to dive into Neatoscan's features to help you drive higher quality items to e-commerce. The feature that I'm going to showcase is called Manifest Don't Send Item Preferences. And the reason I'm going to share this specific feature today is because it's a relatively new one, and I really want to ensure that all Upright clients here today who are manifesting are utilizing this feature, because it's a great way to create that feedback loop. So first of all, you will need to ensure you're manifesting, and then you're going to want to go to the admin settings, then manifest, and then you'll want to scroll down to the item preferences. Now you'll see a toggle there called flag items. Make sure that one's clicked on, and there will be a recording of this that we'll share, by the way. You're going to go ahead and add item preferences. In this case, because it's popular and I was a big fan of the movie, I'm going to add Barbie. And I'm just going to say there's copyright issues. The reason Mattel just doesn't want you posting this on eBay, it's going to get a flag. So that's the example we're going to provide there. And then we're going to say don't send, and then go ahead and save that. Now, when we scroll up to manifesting, we're going to go click that clipboard icon there and add a new manifest. I'm going to add a couple of items that, we definitely do want. So we want Air Jordans. These are in our send list. And we also want Apple iPhones. So as you see, nothing pops up. But when I go ahead and add Barbie Legos, straight away, we're noticing that there's a new error message there. And even if I try to save the manifest, it's going to either force me to ignore and add it anyway, or go ahead and delete the item. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the item, and I'll just show you another example here. So Birkenstock shoes is something else that was on the do not send list. Great. So as you can see there, we're going to have to delete that before we save. But if we have no messages, we can save successfully. So definitely reach out to our support team if that's something that you want to implement over at Upright. Great. So Neatoscan actually has some amazing features as well to gather some store feedback instantly as well. So if you're a Neatoscan customer, this is for you. From the container status, you can review feedback for the store really quickly and easily. What you're going to do is navigate to container status, go to close containers, then review the feedback. This information can be utilized in two different ways. So it's really great for providing specific store feedback. So if you have one store specifically that is just having a few different reject reasons that you'd really like to drill down on, you're more than welcome to do that. And it's also really great for you at the e-commerce level to investigate trends across stores to send in a bulk newsletter. You can also take this a step further. So when unloading the items at e-commerce, there's also acceptable and unacceptable reject reasons when providing store feedback. So as you can see here, there's data on the items you've accepted, items that are rejected, but it's acceptable that you've rejected them. An example of this could be that you're wanting to lot items, and items that are rejected, but it's actually unacceptable. You've provided this information before and you want the store to know, like, hey, you really shouldn't be sending in these items. You can also drill down on the main reason behind the unacceptable reject. So over here on the screen, you'll be able to see these different percentages here, and you can see the one that's upward of 50% is due to invalid research. So ultimately, it's up to you as to what you deem as an acceptable or unacceptable reject reason. However, here's a few guidelines that we recommend. So I'm a really big believer in blaming the process, not the person. So when you're deciding whether it's acceptable or unacceptable, ask yourself, are the store managers aware of this, or is this specific store manager aware of this? Perhaps they're a new store manager. Has it been communicated before, and in which ways have we tried to communicate? And did we allow time for the team to adapt their behavior depending on how much of a backlog that you have? There may be a little bit of a gap in that communication. So this is how you could approach not getting the right products. If you're not manifesting or tagging, we definitely recommend you lean heavily on reporting and store communication, because obviously if you're not tagging or manifesting, you won't be utilizing the two features that I've just shared here. And if you are manifesting or tagging, we recommend leaning on those built-in app features within the software, reporting, and streamlined store communication. All right, next up, not getting enough products. So I know that there's a few of you out there that, they're not having any store participation at all, or they're struggling with a specific store in terms of not getting enough products. So there's a few different ways we can go about this. Firstly, store crediting is really helpful. When your stores are incentivized, they're more likely to send items to you. Building some healthy competition by publicly sharing wins is also a really great way to generate some more items to e-commerce. And finally, a great culture, KPIs, and accountability from executive leadership to e-commerce to retail is also really helpful. So let's dive into these 3 points. Great. So increasing product flow by store crediting. So this is essential. For some, this won't be new news, but for some of you, I do know that not everyone's been able to implement a program like this, but you may know that a $10 item in store might sell triple the price online, but if stores aren't being credited, they're not even receiving that $10, they're receiving $0. So if a store's really, really struggling to meet their revenue goal, they'll be much less likely to send their product to you. So this can be approached in a few different ways, and it does need a finance department support. But this can help foster better relationships between stores and e-commerce, because many stores have budget goals that they need to meet, and some do see e-commerce as taking away from those goals. Allocating the store's sales back to them will encourage them to send more volume of product in. This is where executive leadership buy-in is crucial to e-commerce's success. And similar to not getting the right products, you can also generate some healthy competition with a volume-based leaders board in the same newsletter as the other category analysis one. So we had the category with the average price per item. You can also loop this into the same newsletter, or you can also share this on a screen as you see here. So some key metrics that you're going to want to include in this newsletter type communication are the store name that's number 1 to 5 or number 1 to 10 or whatever you choose, the total items that they sent in the past month or whichever time frame you choose. And as a stretch goal, you could also share the number accepted if that's actually a more important metric to you. Again, we recommend displaying this in the way that generates the most traffic, the most eyes. So this could be email, TV, notice board. And don't be afraid to shout out a store that's recently hit the leaders board. You might have the same stores all the time in that leaders board, but sometimes, if you've got one of the, what do they call them? The underdogs. If you've got one of the underdogs that just make it in, you might want to celebrate that. So you might be wondering how to get this volume-based data in the software. In Neatoscan, you can get quantitative data in the user summary, or you can also pull it from the API, tagged as a metric that you're going to be wanting to looking for to see how many items folks are sending in. In Upright, there's a few different ways to get the quantitative data. So you can take a look at the supplier reports. You can pull it in via the API, or the store manager, if they want, they can go ahead and view their Upright Lister homepage whenever they want. So having data is great, but how do we influence folks to actually take action? That's always a challenging thing. Today, we've spoken about quantitative reporting, qualitative reporting, how to extract information from the software, how to train your teams using text and emails. If your team don't read emails, how to use visual cues, store crediting, and how to generate healthy competition. We've gone through quite a few things. And this presentation has been very much geared towards you as e-commerce communicating with other teams. But it's actually a 360 feedback loop in reality. None of this will truly come together without the non-technical, or more commonly phrased as soft skills. And I say that in air quotes on purpose, because the soft skills are actually really, really tough because it involves adaptation. So here are some things within your control that we've seen work well and build positive team culture. So first is communication and praise. An e-commerce manager can share success with retail teams. So where I've seen this work really well is when a store has an item that's sold for an astronomical price, and they get an email chain going, or whatever makes sense to your stores, and you generate a lot of hype over that really big, Pokemon card or whatever it is. If another way you can do this as well is if you have an e-commerce budget for each store, maybe it's a gift card budget. You can offer shout outs or gifts for high performing employees, all locations meeting or exceeding their goals. So when teams feel appreciated, they're more likely to continue to replicate those behaviors. Next up is listening. So today we provided a lot of ways that you can give feedback to others, but not necessarily ways you can receive feedback back. So something that definitely is worth mentioning today is that each retail location will have their own set of challenges. So e-commerce leadership definitely does, ideally, can be open to listening to them, understanding the challenges they face and how they operate, and being open to identifying some possible compromises that are going to help everyone. So a possible example could be that e-commerce maybe doesn't have a great market or outlet for large pickup only items. Maybe they just don't sell for that much more online, and you've got some stores letting you know that. Consider listening to the stores and letting them retain those items. And if they're communicating times when they can get more in store for that, maybe test it, A to B test it, analyze that data, and then adapt from there. There's often strengths in both sales avenues while avoiding the additional cost of the gas and the truck space getting it to you. So it's always worth having that 360 feedback loop, because relationships at the end of the day are give and take. So that's all we've got for you today, but we do recognize another challenge. Some of you do struggle to get products to both your retail locations and e-commerce with regards to product flow. So our next session on September 19th is going to be geared towards sharing ideas around sourcing more products in your local community. So join us on September 19th for more there. But in the meantime, while you've got me and Adam, we've got another 8 minutes today. What questions do you have for us? Looks like we don't have any in the Q&A at the moment. But if you do have any questions, we're open to hearing. Kevin Martin raised their hand. Kevin, do you have anything? You can either share the question in the Q&A section or go ahead and share that in the chat. Looks like we've got Edward from Santa Fe in New Mexico. Nice to see you, Edward. And Debbie in Charleston, WV. Which state's that, Adam?
West Virginia, I believe.
West Virginia. I should know that. My granddad went to Virginia Tech. So Kevin, if you do have the opportunity to text us, message us, how can we get feedback submitted to Upright Labs escalated? That's a really great question. And I would recommend to ask via chat or also ask via email. Also, you can always email me as well. My details are public, so I'll just pop that in the chat as well. uprightlabs.com. Great. So I'll check out what you're speaking about, Kevin, after this presentation. But if you do have any questions related to product flow, more than happy to answer them right now. Great. So I'm going to give another minute for questions. If there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and close up early. I do see 23 of you still online, so happy to answer anything. In the meantime, Adam, would you like to share how you've noticed tours? Tours is something I haven't shared about at all today in the presentation, but how have you seen tours work well at an e-commerce level?
For sure. That was definitely something that I always advocated for, particularly for those, store individuals, whether they be store managers or store staff who just didn't know what went on in e-commerce. They knew about e-commerce, but they've never seen it before. Sometimes you can get individuals thinking things are easier than they actually are, or are set up in certain ways that's not actually the case. So I was always welcoming of having store managers and store staff come through tours, always happy to take some time to walk them through the exact process, show them this is where the product comes in, this is where we decision it, where we put it into lots, where we move it forward to go through the rest of the process, or where we will reject it and where it goes from there. Then walk them through, this is how it gets photographed, this is how it gets listed, this is where we store it, this is how it gets shipped out if it's sold, and was always happy to answer any questions relating to, how is stuff allocated or anything like that. There was nothing, that I was going to keep secret. It's one of those things where I always try to encourage everybody that we're all in this together. It's all in the organization, especially for the nonprofits. All of that revenue, goes to the programs that are run for those organizations. So whatever we can do, the more revenue that we can raise, the more we can make an effect in the local communities. So definitely recommend tours, whether it's for those e-commerce or the store managers or the store staff. Heartily recommend those.
I love that you mentioned that as well, Adam, with regards to is facilitating the mission. So if e-commerce is earning more money, we're crediting the stores ideally, which is earning more money, but ultimately it all goes into the mission. And I love hearing about different missions for different organizations, most on, yeah, especially I heard about these awesome career programs recently and just helping out folks that, maybe weren't as privileged, which, that's why it's always so special, the work we do. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, so we are going to close out. 4 minutes to go. If any of you do have any questions about what we presented today, you've got my email, laurie@uprightlabs.com, and also the 2 support emails. So support@uprightlabs.com. Also, they've got chat, and then on the Neatoscan end, support@neatoscan.com, and they've got phone support as well for some more instant support. But thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for interacting in the chat and letting us all know where you're tuning in from. And we'll see you on the next masterclass on September 19th.